Right now, this is our time in the studio with Carolina Carole. I welcome the viewers of Freedom. Let's move on to the news. 8 people were injured last night due to a Russian strike on the Kyiv region. The Russian army targeted the Bravary, Bilitsyrkva, Obukiv, and Vishhora districts with drones and missiles. Among the injured in the city of Bilitsyrkva is a 14-year-old girl. She has been hospitalized. A residential building was damaged and 4 more were destroyed. Rescuers evacuated 46 people. In the Bravary district, 4 people were hospitalized. Residential buildings, outbuildings, and cars were also destroyed or damaged. Rescuers, police, emergency services, and commissions documenting the destruction are working at the sites. A clearing of the rubble is ongoing. The number of injured after the overnight Russian shelling of Kyiv has risen to 20. 7 residents were killed, and another 7 were hospitalized, including a child. On the night of November 25th, Russia attacked the capital with various types of missiles and drones. Destruction has been recorded in different parts of the city, there are heating outages, and emergency power cuts were implemented. Our correspondent, Yulia Agranovskaya, will provide the details.
Vyacheslav, a driver for the Freedom TV channel, had a Shahhed drone hit the apartment building where he lives last night. As a result of the Russian strike, a fire broke out in a 9-story building in Kyiv's Dnipro district, spreading from the 5th to the 8th floor.
The explosion happened at around 2:30. Nearby, I live on the 6th floor of the building, in apartment number 90, and my neighbor, who lives right next door to me in apartment number 89, that's exactly where it hit. The sound was extremely, incredibly loud, almost deafening, and it echoed throughout the entire hallway. I remember feeling the vibrations through the walls and the floor, and it was truly a shocking experience. I really felt it myself. There wasn't any panic. It was just a confusing situation.
The man says that right after the strike, he and his neighbors went down to the 5th floor to help other residents of the building get out of their blocked apartments.
I went out into the entryway. The neighbors were already doing great. Everyone went together to the 5th floor and unblocked it. The door to the apartment, well, you see, there were actually quite a few people who were hit by flying shrapnel, and as a result, many of the doors in the building were simply blocked or jammed shut, making it extremely difficult for anyone to get out. We did our best to help people escape, to get them out onto the street where it was at least somewhat safer. At first, I didn't even realize that it was the apartment right next to mine that was affected, but when the carbon monoxide started coming in really strong, filling the air and making it hard to breathe, it became absolutely clear that we had to act quickly and decisively. We knew we couldn't wait any longer, so we took action immediately.
Galina also lived in this building, but in the 3rd entrance. She said she didn't even have time to realize right away that a Shahid drone was flying at the building.
Very smart. I didn't have time. I hid behind a cabinet, just instinctively did it without thinking. I was so scared, I screamed.
Was it a Shahid?
No. All the windows are shattered. All of them. With cracks everywhere. There's one slab there, cracked all around the perimeter.
The aftermath is still being dealt with. Rescue services, police, psychologists, and the municipality are working on site and providing all necessary assistance to the citizens.
As a result, according to preliminary data of a direct drone strike, a fire broke out here from the 5th to 8th floors, with partial destruction of the building's facade and the inner floor slab. At this moment, the fire has been extinguished. During the response, the bodies of 2 deceased were found, 17 people were rescued, including 3 children. Rescuers are dismantling the damaged structures to make sure that no one is trapped under the rubble.
One of the victims of the strike on the 9-story building was Vadim Topchi, a set designer who worked on many Ukrainian plays and films. The UAV flew directly into the man's apartment. His death was reported by his son. As a result of the massive combined attack on the capital last night, damage was also recorded to a 22-story building in the Pechersk district. The aggressor country also destroyed one of the logistics centers of a supermarket chain. According to preliminary information, 4 people were killed there and 5 more were injured. It has no military significance whatsoever. This is how President Volodymyr Zelensky commented on the Russian night attack on Ukraine. The Kyiv, Odesa, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkiv, Chernihiv, and Cherkasy regions were under attack. It is known that 4 drones flew toward our neighbors, Moldova and Romania. There is an exact timeline of their flights. That is why all partners must remember that lives need to be saved every single day. Weapons and air defense are just as important as sanction pressure on the aggressor. There can be no pauses in providing assistance. The key thing now is for all partners to move toward diplomacy together through joint efforts. Pressure on Russia absolutely must work. Thank you to everyone who stands with Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, on social network X. The main targets of the aggressor country have become the energy sector and critical infrastructure. There have also been recorded strikes on ports, food centers, and infrastructure, the president of Ukraine reported. Yulia Agranovskaya for Freedom TV channel.
6 people were injured as a result of Russia's attack on the Odesa region last night. Among them are 2 children. The aggressor used drones for the strikes. This was reported by the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. There have been recorded damages to civilian and energy infrastructure. Fires broke out at some sites. Equipment was damaged. All those injured received the necessary medical assistance. Meanwhile, some schools in Odesa are switching to a hybrid form of education. As a result of another Russian attack, several energy infrastructure facilities were damaged. Social buses are also being launched on the main routes in the city. Medical professionals are assessing the situation in hospitals, and the issue of transferring critical patients to other medical facilities is being addressed. Russia launched nearly 1,000 drones and missiles at Ukraine last night. According to preliminary data, the air defense was either overwhelmed or suppressed. 452 aerial targets. Of these, 438 were drones, 1 Kinzhal aeroballistic missile, 5 Iskander-K cruise missiles, the same number of Kalibr cruise missiles, and 3 Iskander-M ballistic missiles. During the combined massive Russian attack on Ukraine, Moldova's military surveillance systems detected 6 drones in the country's airspace. According to the Ministry of Defense, one of the drones crossed Moldova's airspace at an altitude of about 1,500 meters and was heading toward the state border with Romania. As a result, one of the drones was found on the roof of a house in one of the villages. The Romanian Ministry of Defense also recorded a violation of its airspace during the Russian attack on Ukraine. On the morning of November 25th, radars detected an object near Tolcheia County. It was moving from Ukrainian territory through Moldova toward Romania. To monitor the situation, 2 German fighter jets were scrambled from the airbase. Later, 2 more F-16 aircraft responded to a new incursion in the area of Galați County. According to the Romanian authorities, radar systems made contact with both objects, and neither of them was reportedly a threat to the country. Ukrainian Neptune missiles and Bars drones struck several strategic targets on Russian territory. This information was confirmed by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Last night in Taganrog, which is in the Rostov region, the Beriev aircraft repair plant and the Atlant Aero UAV manufacturing facility were hit. There were explosions and large-scale fires reported there. During the strike on the plant, the experimental A-60 aircraft and equipment for Russian strategic aviation were likely damaged. Ukrainian defenders also struck an oil terminal in Novorossiysk and an oil refinery in Tuapse, Krasnodar Krai. Oil equipment and a surface-to-air missile launcher were damaged. That's 400. The extent of the damage is still being clarified. Now, I'd like to suggest a topic for a more detailed discussion. So, the Russian dictator Putin responded with acts of terrorism to the peaceful proposals from the U.S. and, in particular, President Donald Trump. This is how Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Andriy Sybiha, reacted to yet another massive attack. According to him, Kyiv is striving for peace by all possible means to force the aggressor to end the war.
Ukraine is committed to peaceful efforts, and we emphasize the need to use all available tools to compel the aggressor to stop the war. Pressure on Russia, as well as the strength and unity of the transatlantic allies, remain crucial for ending this war. Andriy Sybiha, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, on the social network X.
Last night, Russia once again launched a massive strike, and this is happening while Ukraine, together with America, Europe, and many other countries around the world, are working around the clock to stop the bloodshed. This was stated by President Volodymyr Zelensky. In the morning, he spoke with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Keir Starmer expressed his condolences to the Ukrainian people, noting that today a meeting of the Coalition of the Willing will take place. Zelensky also discussed steps to end the war with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz.
After the meetings in Geneva, we see many prospects that could make the path to peace a reality. There are significant results, and still a lot of work ahead. We coordinated our positions and priority issues for discussion, as well as some of our next steps and contacts. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The peace plan proposed by the U.S. puts no pressure on the aggressor country, but instead restrains Ukraine, the victim of Russia's brutal invasion. This was stated by Estonian Foreign Minister Margus Tsahkna. According to him, the only way out is to increase pressure on Russia, support Ukraine, and act together with it. The large country of Russia
has not changed its rules, the rules of the game. It continues to wage war and put pressure on Ukraine. If we look at these 28 points that were proposed, in reality, they do not restrict Russia in any way. On the contrary, they restrict Ukraine in terms of sovereignty, security guarantees, future decisions, territories, and the size of the armed forces, all of which are actually very important for a sovereign country to defend itself from aggressive Russia, as well as regarding the future in terms of NATO and European Union membership. That's why we need to understand that, in reality, we must increase the pressure on Russia, and Europe needs to do this, and do it with the 20th package of sanctions.
In the near future, it is important to provide security guarantees to Ukraine to rule out the possibility of another attempted attack by Russia. This was stated by NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. He emphasized that Ukraine must remain as strong as possible in this fight, which is important both for Ukraine itself and for the collective security and stability of Europe and NATO as a whole.
It is crucial that after a peace agreement is reached, Putin never again attempts to attack Ukraine. And he won't if he knows that devastating consequences await him should he try to invade Ukraine again after a prolonged ceasefire, or, even better, the achievement of a peace agreement. Mark Rutte, NATO Secretary General, in an interview with Radio Liberty.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin claims that they supposedly have not yet received the updated draft of the peace plan, which was revised following negotiations between Ukraine and the U.S. in Geneva, Switzerland. According to Putin's press secretary, Peskov, Russia allegedly remains completely open to the negotiation process, and, he added, President Trump's plan could serve as a good basis for talks. At the same time, Bloomberg reports that the Kremlin was not pleased with the updated draft of the plan, which was reduced to 19 points, removing a number of openly pro-Russian conditions. As the agency notes, Russian officials called it unpromising. Meanwhile, global media report that U.S. Army Minister Daniel Driscoll is holding a meeting in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, with a Russian delegation where this new peace plan draft is being discussed. It is expected that Driscoll will also meet there with the head of Ukrainian intelligence, Kirill Budanov. This is reported by the Financial Times. Let me remind you, the draft plan was reduced from 28 to 19 points after negotiations in Geneva. The requirements for transferring Donbass to Russia, limiting the size of the Ukrainian armed forces, and granting amnesty for war crimes were excluded from it. President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, he may visit the United States before the end of November. This was reported by the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, Rustem Umerov. There, the head of state met with American leader Donald Trump to discuss the details of the peace plan. Umerov emphasized that Ukraine values the productive and constructive meetings in Geneva between Ukraine and America, specifically between the Ukrainian and American delegations, as well as President Trump's efforts aimed at ending the war.
Subscribe to The Gaze and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.